Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of What is a Good Mother Project channel. This is our commentary about Garcia and Sarah's 2019 article. To elaborate more on the processes one slide about what are socially acceptable and desirable ways in which the child can act.
So, most parents would, for example, want the kids to uh, achieve good academic results, right? For
Mhm.
example, here in our context, a lot of the parents would really want to see their kids doing homework on their own, right? Without prompting. When the parents, come home from work, they would want to see the kids already finished doing their homeworks. Um, or the kids would make sure they will know when the exams are and they will study for the exams, right? And then they will behave well, right? So all these kind of examples would be like socially acceptable and desirable ways for
Mhm.
parents to expect on the kids, right?
Yeah, would you say this is contingent on the specific culture or environment because it's socially acceptable? So would this change throughout let's say in Hong Kong, these are socially acceptable and desirable ways in which a child acts, and that would look differently in Australia or in another country.
Exactly. Different values might, prompt different desirable ways. So the kind of expectations we have on the child does depend on the culture. But maybe some in some cultures, um, we always say that in modern cultures in places where you live in the city, materialism, competition
Mhm.
is the value. Yeah. So parents often would engage a child in sort of they would want the child to be competitive as opposed to be
Mm.
cooperative. You know what I mean?
So
Like they want to
uh,
see the children knocking down all the other kids, in terms of like academic results. Like hopefully they don't see the kids knocking down other kids, like bullying other kids in school. I don't think parents would deliberately teach that unless they are bullies themselves, that
mm,
we're gonna talk about um more the rejecting parents in episode 5. So yeah, so
mhm.
do come back for episode 5, where we're going to talk about Ronner's interpersonal acceptance and rejection theory. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there are parents out in all sorts of cultures that these rejecting parents, the parents who reject the child, they actually they bully the child themselves. But yeah, no, normally in the past, like healthy normal parents would want kids to be cooperative, listen to the teachers, follow the rules, have good manners, things like that.
Mhm. Okay, so we talked about socially acceptable and desirable ways in which the child learns how to behave. What about the child's developmental instrumental competence? What does that mean?
Yeah, so these good traits or competencies in the kids would include like whether the kids can adapt to different situations and situational demands, like whether the kids can be flexible, adaptiveness or adaptability, another word for this, for it is it's a very key competence. Imagine like kids, can, accommodate to different demands by, the
Mm.
teachers, by the adults around them. Um, Almost like cooperation. Like, some kids are very inflexible. You know, they don't want to follow rules. they cannot adapt to different commands on that, right? They don't want to learn new things. You let's say a parent want the kids to learn the piano or to go to karate class, all those. But when kids are inflexible, they can't. They'll say, okay, I only like ping pong. I don't like piano. That's like they don't. They're not open for learning other stuff.
Mm.
Okay, but if kids are adaptable, they're more like they can adapt to different expectations of them. They're more cooperative in a sense. Also, the um, the way they control their emotions, right? So if they can control the emotions, they can do almost anything in the whole wide world, right? They persist in face of adversity, difficulties. Everything can be difficult, right? Studying can be difficult, doing homework can be difficult. But if the kids can overcome boredom, right? Overcome repetitive practicing, anything like, studying homework, studying is very repetitive. Um, you know, but boredom, can they stand being bored without using electronic devices such as a cell phone? That's self-control. Yeah, this control, they are able to control their emotions, boredom, lack of stimulation, not using a phone, not using any electronic devices to help them control themselves. That's a good competence that we need to see in our younger generations. But you can see that this sort of value, it's slipping, under the rug these days so fast. Like parents don't even require the kids to have good self-control anymore. They'll just give them a
Mm.
cell phone with pictures, with animation, with, moving animation stuff, and then the kids can be, uh, satisfied with these dopamine, instant gratification.
Gratification.
Yeah. Don't you know? Yeah, like yeah, now you're in psychology, like studying this delayed gratification, how important delayed gratification is to the child's um, optimal outcome in the adult life. But now they just um they don't know, parents don't know about the benefit of delayed gratification, and they just give them instant gratification and thought that that will solve the 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 problem in front of their eyes, but they won't solve problems later on. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
gonna do the kids.
yeah. I know, like, especially something that my parents would always say, it's like, it's impolite to be using your phone at dinner. Like, why are you not talking to the person? Or even if you're by yourself, like, just focus on eating your food and then you can always go on your phone later or, like, I don't know, watch something later if they're watching things.
Right, 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 right. Was parenting a child when my son was younger, right? I have the schedule at home that we all follow, right? So that I keep him structured, like because for a kindergarten kid, they spend so much time at home, like, so what should the child do, for if they don't go to school for that day, like, should they play the whole day or what? I have a schedule so that he can follow, like, what time to what time he do reading, what time to what time he'll eat, and then afterwards he'll, just give him a schedule, so that, he can follow. And that is a really good practice. Yeah. So, and then, but obviously schedule is very hard to maintain. You have to be really straight. Otherwise, like you'll be pushing the schedule over the places. Sometimes, we parents want to be flexible as well. Yeah, so flexibility is also important because, like, if someone is overly strict, okay, then, it can create problems. Some warm parent can turn into authoritarian parent because they focus is the strictness and they forget to accept the child that he is just a fallible human being, right? We
Mm,
we also can't follow every single rules, and sometimes the rules are just too strict, right?
mhm.
Yeah. So if as parents we we're inflexible in a way, then we're in a unable to adapt to different situation, right? And so then we can torture the child. Okay.
I see. Okay, let's move on to processes three slide. You had your illustrations on warmth and strictness. Do you want to like explain like the artistic choices you made and like what the significance is?
Yes, it's very hard to draw parental warmth because it involves a lot of, obviously, a lot of things like showing love and acceptance, support, caring. There are a lot of behaviors that the parents can engage in with the child to show love and care and communication. I want to present the idea in a symbolic way. That is, the mother can see the child face to face, which showing love and care. Because attention that a parent gives to the child is a very necessary thing. It's a very important thing. Because oftentimes parents, they obviously, when the kid is very young, the parents are often like, very tall, in terms of the physicality, right? So a caring parent, it's often they will lower the eye contact, they will kneel down, right, to the kid's level to engage in, eye to eye, this, facial engagement or yeah, um, gaze to communicate, to talk to the child, to be with the same level of the child's perspective. Can the parents see the world from the child's perspective? I think that's a very important interpretation. I want to give to the parental warmth. Yeah. So sometimes, like, some parents might ask, how do I show support to the child? How? When the text was saying support them, communicate by reasoning to them, but how do I carry this out? You know, I would say get to the child's down to his level, his or her level, and just see the world from their
Mhm.
perspective. Then you know that, okay, as a child, how helpless I am, right? Yeah, I can't even, yeah, I'm too short. Like, so you have to carry the child. Like, you have to show the child the world, the adult world, and introduce this adult world to that. That's my interpretation of socializing the child, right? Yeah, but it's because the child is very helpless. Yeah.
What
Okay.
about the painting of strictness? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, the painting of straightness, it's about orders, as we were talking about the strictness. So everything has a place, and if it is misplaced, then I got a problem. If you don't follow the schedule, I am furious. If you don't come home by a certain time, I'm like, I can't hold my anger anymore. Yeah, so this is very strict. It does have an emotional tone to the strictness. Yeah, keeping standards of the child's conduct, your supervision. I don't know if it is sound. Does I don't know if it sounds really stringent to you. Yeah, but having an assertive position of authority over the child, it depends on how you render it, how you express authority. Some parents are very authoritarian. They're very straight and they don't smile at all. They'll like really, stick to the letters. Yeah, stick to the rules. No bending whatsoever. But as I said, if a parent just focus on straightness without the accompanying of the warmth, parental warmth, the understanding of the child's perspective and helplessness, that it's just authoritarian. It becomes cold, parental coldness, which in episode 5, we're going to explain this in more details through Bronner's 2021 paper. Yeah, because he differentiates parental rejection into 4 categories, which is like so revealing because this theory was constructed based on cross-cultural evidences, based on his 60 years of research experience and literature review and his own empirical studies. He found that, parents with, high strictness or parents withdrawing all these attention to the child is very negative, will cause very negative consequences to the child and long-term consequences to the child when they become adults themselves. And so straightness is like this. It's like the modern society, modern culture, modern metropolitan city people would need to follow all these things. But if you live in the country, usually there aren't a lot of rules, right? If you're in farming, you're more flexible, right?
Like there's definitely like a societal pressure from living in the city where it's like you I don't know, like the whole structure of society is set up so that you follow these certain rules. And I guess it's like more flexible in the countryside because like you don't have as much like societal pressures given the like lesser population usually. And just like, yeah, there's just not that societal pressure, I feel like.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So the parental strictness, it's definitely the metropolitan, the urban requirement or expectations of the parents. And most of us live in the city, so yeah, we need the rules. But that leads us to the processes 4 slide, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't know if you, as a viewer, are curious about these other illustrations that we didn't get to explain, right? In the CODIS illustration, there are 2 ways of interpreting the relationship between the parent and child, right? So on one hand, the child looks like he or she is rejecting the parents at the same time, right? Because he's
Mm.
facing the other, the opposite. He's opposite the parents. And on the other hand, the parents is trying to feel I'm hands off. I can't handle that anymore, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So e even as the mother is sort of overlooking the child, she is just overlooking the child. She is not trying to engage the child in face-to-face communication. She's just overlooking as a parent who is usually taller, right? If the child become adolescents, they can become taller than the parent. But usually when the child is younger, the parent is always taller. And so she's overlooking the child, but she's not trying to help the child solve any of his problems. Right? The
Mm.
child is on his own. And the child knows that there's a parent, there's a mom at the back, but he's not approaching.
Mm.
that's the situation in parental coldness.
What about the low in strictness painting?
Yeah, the low in strictness is actually a painting of chaos from another structure of parenting style that we're not citing here in our season 1's reading list yet, but we will get to them. One of the ways of parenting style depicts a chaotic situation in the parenting styles in which the parent emotionality is kind of different sometimes, so and then it's a contrast to or against strictness because it's quite the opposite of strictness. So when the parents set rules, they try to follow through the rules, right? And that's important. I'm not saying follow through the rules are not important. In fact, when the child, particularly when the child is young, if you tell them you're going to reward the child, you need to follow through that reward. You
Mhm.
don't just, oops, sorry, I forgot. I've got to reward you. I promised you that I'm gonna bring you to Disneyland, or as a reward, or like to a certain place for ice cream, and then you forgot about the reward. Then what message are you telling the child? You don't care,
Mhm.
right? And so why should I continue to listen to you? Even as young
Mhm.
as a kindergartner, they know all these things.
Yeah.
Or if you want to say I am engaging in a negative punishment, I'm not advocates of positive punishment, okay? But negative punishment, that means you take away some rewards away from the child because of the child misbehavior. I did that, for example, when my son was in K1, kindergarten 1, 4-year-old, like he hit someone in class. That's bad, right? But they do what happens. Kids just, boys, they'll just they will fight for the same toy. And he did hit another classmate, and obviously like received a phone call from his kindergarten teacher. Okay, so what did I do? I punished him by telling him, okay, well, it's not good to hit another student with or your classmate with a toy. That's so bad.
Mhm.
So no cookies for a week. No cookies a week, okay? And so I keep reminding him that what this week, no cookies because nah, you hit someone else. Okay. So he did not hit another student anymore in class. So I make sure I, explain this to him, properly. He got the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so punishment, you need to carry out. You need to follow through your punishment. You can't eat your words, right? You can't eat your own words. A promise is a promise. A rule is a rule. You follow through. But what we were saying is that when the child becomes a teenager, there's all sorts of things going on in the life. Sometimes some rules are not. Yeah. So if you said, okay, you need to come home before a certain time, I think you will. If he's not coming home, or he's not calling you, it should be a concern. Yeah, because of safety, right? You've concern and but if something happened, you understand, right? You try to, oh, okay, right? You try to understand. So that's where the flexibility comes in. So, for example, if you want a kid, okay, I want you to get an A grade for this course, and I'm going to give you this and that, right? As a reward. But then if the kid cannot achieve that, what do? You right? Because like yeah, it's like that, even certain rewards cannot get the kid to get to a certain level of achievement, right? And then you then you probably change your expectation, right? Yeah, so that's why it's these kind of things can be flexible in terms of rules.